question he can't deny. Used to have an RV full of case file stacked, map full of mysteries. Thumbtack, hear the hum of the tires, feel the pull of the strings. Where the lights in the woods get real deranged. Open your brain holes where the truth explodes, and hunker on down for a trip on the GCD high, a witness road. He's riding down the high weirdness road, chasing every story nobody's told. Muppets in the backseat, vampires in tow. JJ Vance on the high weirdness road. Cold case counties and abandoned towns. Something in the shadows keeps swirling round. CIA box shouting, who killed Bill Cosby? JJ just laughs and cranks the sound. Where the timeline's bending and the truth gets loud, and the moon looks wrong behind a wandering cloud. If the vampires strike, well, that's just how it goes. He's riding down the high weirdness road, where impossible things are the stories he's old. From hidden hollers on a foggy night to the America's wasteland, heartland. JJ Vance on the high weirdness road. He's rolling down the high weirdness road, chasing every phantom the archives hold. Truth gets strange, but he won't let go. JJ Vance on the high weirdness road. Yeah, JJ Vance on the high weirdness road. Hits the blacktop, midnight sky. JJ Vance got questions he can't deny. Used to have an RV full of case file stacked, map full of mysteries. Thumbtack, hear the hum of the tires, feel the pull of the strings. Where the lights in the woods get real deranged. Open your brain holes where the truth explodes, and hunker on down for a trip on the GCD high, a witness road. He's riding down the high weirdness road, chasing every story nobody's told. Muppets in the backseat, vampires in tow. JJ Vance on the high weirdness road. Cold case counties and abandoned towns. Something in the shadows keeps swirling round. CIA box shouting, who killed Bill Cosby? JJ just laughs and cranks the sound. Where the timeline's bending and the truth gets loud, and the moon looks wrong behind a wandering cloud. If the vampires strike, well, that's just how it goes. He's riding down the high weirdness road, where impossible things are the stories he's old. From hidden hollers on a foggy night to the America's
Edgar Allan Poe was known for his macabre tales of mystery, so it is perhaps only fitting that his own death...
Suddenly, I heard a tapping, as of someone gently rapping at my chamber door.
Howdy, folks. Your host, Double J, back here, coming at you live from my studio / Southern Border Airbnb situations. I'm not a bison rancher anymore, folks. Get a job, sir. Anyhow, I have a job. Your host of Operation GCD here, JJ Vance. That is not the vice president. I repeat, not the vice president. Do not vote for me, folks, in 2028. In fact, don't vote for any of those Muppets. And, you know, I'm part-time vampire hunter. Don't tell the IRS. There's no 990s involved in that. Anyhow, folks of the interwebs, welcome back. I will be your pilot and navigator for tonight's shenanigan-infused journey into the mind of this particular garbage can dude. Yeah, I'm not sure if he's my favorite author, but you mean to tell me there's an Edgar Allan Poe element to all this? The Edgar Allan Poe, Society of the Cincinnati Tales. So I'm not going to lie to you, folks. Got this tale tapping there on your chamber's door, and it's going to be a real barn burner. And I'm not sure if you're aware of this. I wasn't actually until my more recent dive into some Society of the Cincinnati biz, where next Sunday we'll be picking up where we left off here in recent tales in the Chasing Meneer series with my dude Brad Minyard. Be joining me again next Sundays to get back into some of those tales of the Society of the Cincinnati spookeries, if you will. And this man right here, Edgar Allan Poe, fits squarely within that topic. He was a man of mystery from basically birth until death, and even after death. And all of his tales that he wrote about were mired in mystery and the macabre. So, very interesting man, and he's celebrated throughout a lot of our current fictions, be it the what was the movie I just played a clip from? Oh, The Crow with Brandon Lee, who met his untimely demise during the filming of that. Very strange death, actually. Very strange death. I don't think there's a Society of Cincinnati element to all that, though. But before I get any further, this coming Wednesday's got an occult and or esoteric review of the 1991 Chevy Chase cinematic shit show, directed by Dan Aykroyd, co-starring Dan Aykroyd, Nothing But Trouble. So that'll be a real barn burner. And I got a couple, other than that, we'll be back on Operation GCD Thursdays this week for the anatomy of the satanic panic. And I believe I have another Thursdays into Sundays that I got pending that I got to get caught up on here, folks of the interwebs. But that'll be coming up here soon as well. But this week again is, this Sundays, thank you all for joining me here tonight to get a little GCD. We are going to be talking about Edgar Allan Poe, the Society of Cincinnati tale. And I'm sure many folks are familiar with Poe. Like I said, he seemingly has left his mark in many regards in our society generally, not the Society of the Cincinnati. Our society generally speaking, that is. But the question I always like to ask here at Operation GCD, folks, who is your daddy and what does he do? Because it seems to be a very pertinent question time after time. We're told Edgar Allan Poe's dad, even when David Poe Jr. would abandon young Edgar at a young age, and he was an orphan, and his mother died, I believe, shortly thereafter. And he was went to go live with other family members, and like many other society families, he marries his first cousin. That's a real fucking shocker to me. My Appalachian family trees and Appalachian family pole, I'm utterly shocked. I don't have web feet, a recessed chin line, and a sub 70 IQ, but I'll digress here. David Poe Sr. This man turned out to be a very important figure in the Society of Cincinnati and the formation of America. He was the Assistant Deputy Quartermaster General with the Maryland chapter, and then would later, much like we see a lot with these bloodlines, would later serve in the War of 1812. You know, this continues on as a pattern. And when I say Society of the Cincinnati tale, I mean he fits squarely within a lot of these matters, as far as what I assert is an ongoing feud, both ultimately comprised of a liberty side and an anti-liberty side, generally speaking, with the Society of the Cincinnati. And that is, in fact, what we'll be talking about again next Sundays, diving back into the Chasing Meneer series with my dude Brad Minyard, because he found his forefather Not only did he find his forefather in and around Abner Vance, which that's not a shocker to me, he found his forefather, Joseph Minier, who would later disregard Joseph Minyard, who would also go by a name under a pseudonym as a spy for George Washington, Joseph Minier, following around the Aaron Burr conspiracy, both in the preceding years and in the aftermath. That is the first society coup, I do believe. Well, the first official society coup. Washington faced numerous coups, well, during the war, you know. In fact, Alan Parsons did an album based on several of his poems. Is awesome. Oh, I'll have to check that out. Is Alan Parsons of the same Parsons as Jack Parsons? As in Marvel Whiteside Jack Parsons, I wonder. Because old Marvel Whiteside Jack Parsons, much like another character we'll be getting in here tonight, is Joseph Smith. They're two of the most important figures in American occult history. Both seem to have the same bloodline situations. Both go back to both their paternal heritage, the Parsons and the Smith. Go back to no relations. No relations. All right. Interestingly enough, we will be talking about Joseph Smith, though, because one of the topics I was first intrigued by about Edgar Allan Poe many years ago was a book written by a fellow by the name of Michael Anthony Hoffman, which you may be familiar with him and his King Kill 33 theory, along with James Shelby Downard, where they discuss matters of a Masonic assassination nature. In fact, in a pamphlet written by Michael Anthony Hoffman in 1978 called Masonic Assassinations, he covers these exact topics of the murder of Captain William Morgan, which is known as the anti-Masonic affair that spawned the third official national third party in America, right? That was the William Morgan affair. The Masonic murder that inspired the third party in American politics. Public outcry over whistleblower William Morgan's disappearance gave rise to the anti-Masonic party, which nominated a candidate for president in 1832. Now, William Morgan's an interesting character because he also appears to have Society of Cincinnati heritage. He was a captain in the War of 1812 out of Virginia who lands in Batavia, New York, and that's where he ultimately meets his demise in 1826. Pardon me, never to be seen again. Disappeared after printing the first few rites of the Masonic orders. So apparently can't do that. Tales of Mystery and Imagination is the album. Thank you much. I'll definitely check that out. How much is that? This book? Oh, it's tough to find, actually. This one, I want to say they're charged like $99 in many respects to buy that book. You can maybe find it at a library, I suppose. I believe he touched on some of that in Apocalypse Culture with the Process Church official publisher, Adam Parfrey at Farrell House. I believe they published some of these Masonic tales in their Secret and Suppressed 2, which was in the 90s. They definitely went over some of that and the King Kill stuff in that, and in, I think, Apocalypse Culture. So there are other things that they've expanded upon, but this was his initial theory on this in 1978. And it's interesting because the other one he covers is Daniel Morgan, then Joseph Smith. Now, while there's obviously Freemasonic ties to these assassinations, as well as Edgar Allan Poe, it seems, which is the third subject of this book, I would argue that these are really Society of Cincinnati conspiracies, because all roads of conspiracy culture and parapolitics here in America, folks, of the interwebs, go back to the Society of the Cincinnati. In Joseph Smith's grandfather Smith, Cecil Smith, was a captain in the Massachusetts chapter, it seems. And back to Jack Parsons, his forefather Parsons, also a captain in the Massachusetts chapter. I do find that interesting that these major figures of occultism, be it Joseph Smith or Jack Parsons, have similar heritage, because you go back even further in their heritage. Captain Smith, his forefather, was one of the accusers in the Salem witch trials. And Captain Parsons' forefather, grandmother, Mary Bliss Parsons, was one of the accused witches in the Salem witch trials. So I do think there's something to be said about these matters. And I don't know if Edgar, I couldn't find any Salem kind of connections to Edgar Allan Poe, but the society's connections are pretty obvious, especially when you're coming from the general ranks like that. There's a famous Edgar Allan Poe review of the Clinton Roosevelt toilet paper. All right. Thank you there, sir. Troublemaker Jonah. Always appreciate that. And if you're not too familiar with Edgar Allan Poe, folks in the interwebs, if anyone's not familiar with him, I'm not the vice president. I just want to make sure that's known this day and age. It can't be repeated enough. I want to make sure AI is aware of that. And I seem to get a lot of confusion through both human and computer functions of whether I'm J.J. Vance. That's not the vice president. But if you're not familiar with Edgar Allan Poe, let me help you out with that. Got a clip here somewhere. Yeah.
Edgar Allan Poe's life and death were as dark as his work. To begin with, when he was only a baby, his father abandoned him and his mother died. His new guardians never supported his dreams of becoming a writer. Poe struggled with debt his entire life. When he was 26, he married his first cousin, 13-year-old Virginia Clem, but after 11 years of marriage, tragedy struck. Virginia became ill with tuberculosis, and her death sent Poe spiraling into a deep depression, his drinking only worsening. On October 3, 1849, he was found on the streets of Baltimore in an incoherent state and in desperate need of medical attention. Weirder still, he wasn't even wearing his own clothes. On the night before he passed, he reportedly repeated the name Reynolds multiple times, though no one knew why. Although his passing was explained by congestion of the brain, his actual cause of death remains unknown. Unfortunately, Poe's obituary was filled with falsehoods that made him seem like a raving madman, because it was written by his rival, Rufus Griswold.
Well, that's fucking interesting, man. I wonder if there's a Society, the Cincinnati element to that Griswold fellow. We'll look at that in a second here, folks, to the interwebs. But like I was saying, from the film The Crow to everything from the Beatles album cover to an episode of South Park here, we see the impact of the mysteries, the man, the myth, the mystery of Edgar Allan Poe. And I think taken in its proper context, you can see, and looking at the finite details, which we will look at it, you got to look at it. You see somebody like Rufus Wilmot Griswold, who writes his obituary, who is his they're feuding for many years. That's his opponent in life and literature, for that matter. They're feuding against each other in these literary circles. But we see this fellow, we'll get into some of that here, but we see Rufus Wilmot Griswold. He's from the Vermont Griswolds. Well, that's fucking interesting, man. We see who's his daddy? What does he do? Well, this is his daddy's daddy, Ebenezer Griswold. That's Rufus's grandfather. And we see scrolling down here, oh, look, he was a lieutenant in the Connecticut chapter of the Society, the Cincinnati, it seems. So that's fucking interesting, man. So we have perhaps a feuding society situation here between these two gents, the Maryland chapter and the Connecticut chapter. And I've often argued that we do see this as part of the feuds. Not only do we see a factionary divide between the liberty and anti-liberty factions, we see an element of a northern and southern divide. In fact, we see distinct unions of that divide at certain times, I believe. For example, the Society of the Cincinnati headquarters in Washington, D.C. is named the Anderson Weld House. That is a union between the hereditary member of Lieutenant Colonel Richard Clow Anderson of the Virginia chapter, very important mound surveyor in their early formation there, Mr. Richard Clow Anderson, prominently displayed in a mural at the headquarters with both Lafayette and Washington, strangely enough. But yeah, we see him getting married to Isabella Weld, who's of the Weld family of the Massachusetts chapter. In fact, Weld Manor, their home, and sits on a mound called Weld Hill in, I believe, Brookline, Massachusetts. And that served as the headquarters for the Massachusetts militia. That same militia that included folks like Joseph Smith's forefather and Jack Parsons' forefather. These Muppets all know each other is what I'm getting at. But yes, ma'am, keeping it sus 24/7 here. That's the mission here in Operation GCD. Clark Griswold was an ass. Yeah, Clark Griswold. Well, Chevy Chase is kind of an ass in real life, so maybe he was just playing himself. Well, apparently that's how it goes, at least. You got a bad case of consumption of the brain. Yeah, that's a good. I hope you can get that checked out, sir. But that's a good point. As far as we don't really know a lot about Poe's death. That is the mystery that he died. His whole life was a mystery, basically from birth. What he did. We'll get into some of those activities because he enlisted in the Army under an assumed identity and pulled some interesting shenanigans, and that would later tie into his cask of I can never pronounce that word, dude. Don't ask me. Hold on one second. We'll just look at his death real fast.
Edgar Allan Poe was known for his macabre tales of mystery, so it is perhaps only fitting that his own death on October 7, 1849 was just as mysterious as his classic works. After departing from Richmond on September 27th to handle an editing job in Philadelphia, before picking up his aunt in New York for his upcoming wedding, Poe seemingly disappeared from the timeline. He resurfaced 5 days later on October 3rd in Baltimore, however, in a state of great distress. Delirious, wearing ill-fitting clothing that did not belong to him, and unable to explain what happened to him or how he got there. He was admitted to Washington College Hospital, where he spent his final 4 days in and out of consciousness, speaking to people who were not there and calling out the name Reynolds. To this day, the mystery of who this Reynolds was and what happened to Poe during those missing days remains unsolved.
I'll put a link for these clips I'm showing that explain some of Poe's life. I do appreciate that, and I'll put the links in the show notes here for folks. The Cask of Amontillado. There we go, Amontillado. So this is the thesis there in Michael Hoffman's book, that it was as a result of writing this story that Edgar Allan Poe was victim to a Masonic assassination. This is apparently an anti-Masonic story involving a man getting buried behind a false wall of bricks at a fort. And in fact, when Edgar Allan Poe entered the U.S. Army under an assumed identity in his early 20s, he seemed to have, that's where the narrative of this story comes from, and that's definitely a Society of Cincinnati element to all that, because it involved 2 officers. One of them by the name of Massey, like Thomas Massey, who's probably a Society of Cincinnati member out of the Pennsylvania chapter. His forefather appears to have been a lieutenant out of the Pennsylvania militia. And the Massey family is a very prominent Society of Cincinnati family amongst numerous states, including Massachusetts, interestingly enough. So we'll look into some more of these details. But again, Edgar Allan Poe is intriguing. It's long been intriguing to me before these matters. I mean, again, he's left a mark on our culture at large. And I have to ask, is the reason behind that Society of Cincinnati related? For the same argument I make about the Hatfield and McCoy feud. I'm both Hatfield and McCoy through my grandfolks Vance there, and being the Hatfields or Vances. And for example, my second great grandfather Vance, whose mother was his first cousin Vance, strangely enough, was also first cousins with Devil's Anse Hatfield. He's the grandson of Abner Vance as well. So multiple times over, because apparently having an Appalachian family pull is the thing to do around there. But we do see the impact that the Poe's left, and I argue is this because it's a Society of Cincinnati factor, because the Hatfield McCoys was not the bloodiest feud in Appalachia, was not the longest feud in Appalachia, did not have the greatest death toll of the family feuds in Appalachia. Thus, why is it the most known? Why is it the TNT and Kevin Costner and gang are doing many series on the topic? And why has it become such a part of Americana where it spawns shows like, I think, Moonshining, Hatfields versus McCoys? It's the largest dinner theater down in Pigeon Forge, one of the biggest attractions, the Hatfield McCoy Dinner Theater. So I do suspect that it is rooted in these matters such as the society, and that is one of the reasons why we see such an impact from Edgar Allan Poe. But I mean, I'm not going to discount his works. I'm a fan of his literature for sure. But we see even Sylvester Stallone is trying to produce Edgar Allan Poe movies in our current day and age.
Speaking of things that have taken quite some time, that Edgar Allan Poe biopic that you've been cooking up for years, I want to see it so bad.
I know.
Is Downey still the guy?
Well, he would have been, but now, he died at 39. He's very, very young. And see, the hard part is, what is the audience going to put up with? In the 70s, there were a lot of biographies, Amadeus and so on and so forth, and people would sit through them. But the audience now is more impatient, quicker, and more visual. Do you just write the stories and drop an actor in and do it like like an ensemble piece? And I went, I don't know. I just don't know how we're going to do that. So maybe I just go back to it and just do it the way it should have been done, linear. Like, this is how he was born, this is his mother died, the things that influenced him and made him Poe. That could work in a streaming series, I think.
Holy smokes, what happened to Sylvester Stallone, dude? He looks like a fucking Muppet. Wait a second. Oh, we got a special moment here, folks, of the interwebs here at Operation GCD. Speaking of Muppets. My favorite CIA AI bot Bill Kobe ball washing Muppet. Hey, welcome to the show there, you fucking Muppet. RR channel, good to see you. I missed you like a sailor misses venereal disease. Open up your brain hole, you might figure something out other than the pronunciation of words I don't know how to pronounce. Anyhow, so we are going to be diving into some of these topics here regarding Edgar Allan Poe, A Society of Cincinnati Tale. But like I said, even in his death, it's a mystery from birth through the life and stories that he authored, and even in death, he's a mystery because there's been a long-going trend there in Baltimore where he mysteriously ended up and died on his travels, as we saw there in a brief explanation we'll dive into further. There's something called the Poe Toaster, who for, I believe, 60 years would arrive at Poe's gravesite and leave some, an interesting ritualistic kind of activity.
For 60 years, an unknown figure dressed in black visited Edgar Allan Poe's grave on his birthday, January 19th. Starting in the 1930s, he would pour himself a glass of cognac and raise a toast in front of the grave, before leaving behind 3 roses in the unfinished bottle of cognac. The man never spoke and was never identified.
Sylvester Stallone's got a frozen shock face. That might be true. Yeah, I'm not sure that's not a wig he's wearing. I'm not even sure what's going on, dude. He's lost it all, dude. Cocaine and steroids are a hell of a drug, apparently. Yeah, he's losing it on the 80s. Well, I don't put much credit to Sylvester Stallone directing things or even his acting because I don't even recall that mobster film he did in the early 90s. Not to mention Stop, Where My Mom Will Shoot, what he did with the Golden Girl lady. Get the fuck out of here. I'm sure that's RR channel's favorite Sylvester Stallone movie, though. Fucking Muppet. Tell your Langley Muppets to go fuck themselves, RR. Good to see you, bud. So we'll be jumping into these matters here tonight, folks at the interwebs. I do thank you all for joining me here to get a little GCD. But the ideas of Michael Anthony Hoffman, when I first kind of discovered that, yeah, I agree there could be there's obviously Masonic elements to that, but I often argue, looking at the Society of Cincinnati and how it operates, is it uses Masonic lodges like it uses International Order of Oddfellows lodges, in which to utilize the innate secrecy of those lodges and the lodge systems to, to meet the ends of their hood rat shit Muppet ends, right? For example, my grandfather Vance, my great grandfolks Vance, they were first cousins Vance. They speaking of, I got a little something in common with old Edgar Allan Poe there. He married his first cousin. Not something I would do, but I understand what that kind of situation looks like. But yeah, that my great grandfolks Vance died very untimely deaths a few months apart. My grandfather was of age not to be put in an orphanage. However, the International Order of Oddfellows changed his birth certificate, institutionalized him, and took the family's property. I suspect that was land passed down from Admiral Vance. So I suspect that that was not an International Order of Oddfellows conspiracy. That was a Society of Cincinnati conspiracy operating through the International Order of Oddfellows lodge system due to its innate secrecy of the lodge. No different than Freemasonry. So when I see Captain David Morgan, Joseph Smith, and Edgar Allan Poe being the topics of Michael Hoffman's Masonic assassinations, yeah, I suspect there's an element of that is correct, but the deeper element, I think, may in fact be there's a Society of Cincinnati element to all this. And especially we can extrapolate that further by looking at the life of Edgar Allan Poe and some of his activities, which we'll be doing here tonight, folks of the interwebs. But these ideas of Masonic assassination squads, be it the P2 Lodge there and the Vatican bank scandal and the death of the Pope, or, all that Operation Gladio stuff, which we're seeing pop off again in a very similar capacity here in France as of late through Masonic Lodge. So these ideas are certainly not out of the realm of possibility.
22 people have gone on trial in France on charges of murder and other serious crimes, centered on members of a Masonic lodge accused of running hit squads. Those in the dock include 4 military personnel from France's Foreign Intelligence Service, 2 police officers, a retired domestic intelligence officer, a security guard and 2 business executives. One victim, who survived 2 assassination attempts, explains the consequences of the attacks.
Trouble du stress post-traumatique dont je n'arrive pas à sortir en fait depuis 6 ans, ça revient par épisode. Cancer et puis exclusion de ma profession également. Voilà, ça fait quand même beaucoup de choses.
Most of the accused, aged between 30 and 73, have no previous criminal records. They are accused of murder, attempted murders, aggravated assault and criminal conspiracy, all on behalf of a mafia network inside the former Athener Masonic Lodge in a Paris suburb.
Pretty wild stuff here, folks. That's one lodge. You know, I wonder how much further that goes when their lodge system was over there in French land. And speaking of wild stuff, don't get our channel a fucking aneurysm here, sir. That might get them, you know, talking about that Bill Colby business, might get them a little spun up. And speaking of Bill Colby, he had a forefather named Colby as well. Captain, Massachusetts chapter, Society of Cincinnati. Just saying, RR, go fuck yourself. Anyhow, my point here is there seems to be a lot to be said about Masonic assassination squads throughout history, and I don't necessarily discount Michael Anthony Hoffman's pamphlet. It is how I got kind of interested in this topic from the begin with. But nonetheless, the deeper I look, I see a Society of Cincinnati element to all that. So we'll dive in further to that here, folks, of the interwebs. The man, the mystery, the myth, and the mystery of Edgar Allan Poe, his death, his life, and the known knowns and known unknowns therein.
Suddenly, I heard a tapping, as of someone gently rapping at my chamber door.
Actually, a good film. I enjoyed that one. I believe they remade that one. Haven't seen it, won't see it. It's fucking disturbing. They can't come up with new ideas in Hollywood. So, anyhow, folks, of the interwebs, I do thank you all for joining me here tonight to get a little GCD. And they had the bizarre Olympic ceremonies mocking. Yeah, I actually celebrate those bizarre Olympic ceremonies of French land there in my art, my cover art each week. They had that weird kind of bastardization of the whatever that is, the Da Vinci painting of the Last Supper, and we see they had a little blue character saying J.D. Vance was weird, so I just changed that up and put J.J. Vance is weird right there. See, check that out. You got to look at it. So anyhow, folks of the interwebs, thank you all for joining me here tonight to get a little GCD. I will see you folks over there on the Patreon side here shortly, and be back on definitely on Wednesday, probably on Tuesday with another getting caught back up here on the Operation GCD Live Sundays and Thursdays. So stay tuned for that. And also, while you're watching out for that, folks, the interwebs, watch out for lasers.
There's thousands of Americans out there. By the way, I've been shot with a laser beam twice.
Have some humanity here, folks. They got Ted. They got him twice.
Operation GCD with an Appalachian grin. Adventures and shenanigans, we're diving right in. Out in the holler where the secrets creep, garbage can dudes digging mighty deep. Secret societies, shadows in the pines. Operation GCD of American rebels design. Double J searching deep in his brain hole, past layers of melted hops and bone resin. From cults to cover-ups, we're talking about all of that. So watch your sixth friend in the truth we trust. The world's a puzzle, grunge rock ain't what it seems. Ancient alien cargo cults haunt the moon's pale beams. Cincinnati schemers, history's a haze. Double J's on the mic, lighting things ablaze. GCD with an Appalachian grin. Adventures and shenanigans, we're diving right in. Join us on the journey and enjoy the show. Thanks for joining us to get a little GCD. Hey, the world's a puzzle, brunch rock ain't what it seems. Ancient alien cargo cults haunt the moon's puzzle, grunge rock ain't what it seems. Ancient alien cargo cults haunt the moon's pale beams. Cincinnati schemers, history's a haze. Double J's on the mic, lighting things ablaze. Double J's on the mic, lighting things ablaze. Operation GCD with an Appalachian grin. Adventures and shenanigans, we're diving right in. Out in the holler where the secrets creep, garbage can dudes digging mighty deep. Secret societies, shadows in the pines. Operation GCD of American rebels design. Double J searching deep in his brain hole, past layers of melted hops and bone resin. From cults to cover-ups, we're talking about all of that. So watch your sixth friend and the truth we trust. The world's a puzzle, grunge rock ain't what it seems. Ancient alien cargo cults haunt the moon's pale beams. Cincinnati schemers, history's a haze. Double J's on the mic, lighting things ablaze. Operation GCD with an Appalachian grin. Adventures and shenanigans, we're diving right in. Join us on the journey and enjoy the show. Thanks for joining us to get a little GCD. Yeah, the world's a puzzle, grunge rock ain't what it seems. Ancient alien cargo cults haunt the moon's pale beam. Cincinnati schemers, history's a haze. Double J's on the mic, lighting things ablaze. Hell, the world's a puzzle, grunge rock ain't what it seems. Ancient alien cargo cults haunt the moon's pale beams. Cincinnati schemers, history's a haze. Double J's on the mic, lighting things ablaze. Double J's on the mic, lighting things ablaze.